Good morning, YouTube. Abby here. I have woken up to some very interesting news today. Not only do we have some insane DPS role passive buff that's coming that I'll cover in the video after this one. So, two uploads today. Wow, crazy. But in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the fact that Overwatch 2 has lost its lead hero designer, Jeff Goodman. Now, a quick, little insight into who Jeff Goodman was. He was basically the man, the head honcho behind hero design. He gave us things like Genji, Tracer, Reinhardt, Winston, Diva, Mercy. And then he also gave us things like Baptiste and Brigitte, Junker Queen, and all of these things. Now, albeit he's been under some controversy here and there, especially in regards to his hero design. In Overwatch 2, he thought Ryan was some backline tank, and that actually caused a lot of the player base to kind of feel very upset and even lose faith in the fact that this man probably doesn't even know how his game is being played, and a lot of his balance decisions and design techniques that he's been trying to do, as we've seen with Baptiste, Brigitte, and if we want to argue that he was involved in the process of in the early heroes of Overwatch 2, then Kiriko and Junker Queen, there are still some elements of things that players don't enjoy that are still around, but maybe they can be controlled. Regardless of my personal feelings on his work, I respect the man. I respect his craft. I love him for giving me the best game I've ever played in my life, my favorite game of all time. But let's look into this article. It is on PCGamer.com. They talk about this article saying the lead hero designer behind Overwatch 2's huge roster of characters and the one to come in its upcoming sequel has left Blizzard, the company has confirmed. Jeff Goodman made the decision to leave Blizzard earlier this year. This is said in quotes from a spokesperson. The last public appearance by Jeff Goodman was in a group interview within the press in June. Blizzard has provided a statement saying that we thank Jeff for his many years of service at Blizzard and wish him all the best. His ability to bring Overwatch's diverse hero roster through gameplay has been incredible, and the mark he's left on the Warcraft and Overwatch teams will be felt for years to come. Now, before I continue with this, I am aware of some, not so positive things about him. Anybody that's kind of kept up with Jeff Goodman, I was reading through some Reddit threads, so let's take this with a slight grain of salt, but a lot of people were going into depth at the fact that anytime this man was on the development team, he had a good idea and a good vision, but his execution was really, really poor. And people attributed that some of the downfall in regards to Warcraft. And then when he was on Heroes of the Storm, all was kind of like coming back to him being the lead. And then you could also make an argument that this is the same man that created Brigitte, which was the first nail in the coffin for Overwatch 1 is, death. So, you know, it's hard to believe that he left Blizzard, but I'm gonna be real with you guys. I genuinely think they forced him to leave. It was like a softer way of getting to fire him without necessarily having to fire him. Like they just forced him out of his position or just told him, hey, just go work on this other game. Like that we have. Like we think you're done with Overwatch. We want to see you do something else because right now Overwatch doesn't need you. It needs fresh blood going into Overwatch 2. That brings us into the new balance patch notes that were first leaked by Contenders leaker, but now they are official, and there's something very interesting via a DPS role passive. It's an insane buff, but we'll talk about it in just a moment. Before that, though, irregardless of what we're talking about, Jeff Goodman, I do think, and again, this is with all respect and no disrespect, whatever, but I really do think Jeff Goodman kind of lost, the track that he was on what made Overwatch enjoyable. I think when you go from heroes like that you've designed early on, like Cassidy, Genji, Tracer, let's say that's what the DPS role, Hanzo, very skill intensive heroes to heroes that may require a lot more understanding of movement despite having easier mechanics. So Lucio and Mercy are these examples. High skill, high reward heroes like Ana, that felt really fun to play. And then on the tank side, you had again, game sense and mechanics kind of deciding factors on these big brawling, heroes like Winston, Reinhardt, Diva, and all these type of things. When you kind of deter away from that and you start creating heroes that kind of do everything at once, so like Sigma, Wrecking Ball. Now, an argument could have been made for Junker Queen, but she's gotten her nerfs. And then you have supports that can do everything with Baptiste, Brigitte, and well, now as we can see, Kiriko can also kind of do everything at once. So it starts to overwhelm the player base. It starts to kind of go away from the original vision of having Overwatch be this like fast-paced first-person shooter that is like, it's all about, you outplaying the other person by having the better skill. But then Overwatch kind of devolved into, well, it's not about you outplaying the other person. It's just like hoping that your team picks the right comps versus the enemy team, and the game is not even about outplaying each other anymore. It's just become a rock paper scissors dynamic that was extremely toxic and very harmful to the game's competitive environment. Now, that's just my personal opinion on it. I don't think he stepped down. I think this is PR talk. I think Blizzard generally let him go, and I think the final nail in the coffin where they decided, yeah, we can't have Jeff Goodman's vision or execution anymore, was when the Jotes comp happened. And it's very reminiscent of the Goats comp. So, in case anybody doesn't know what Goats was, for almost 3 years, almost, no, well, 2.5 years, the Goats comp, which was three tanks and three supports, dominated high level play as well as the Overwatch League. This was horrible because it killed viewership. It led to the DPS role basically becoming useless, and it just wasn't good for the game. And we kind of entered that sustain and heal creep meta because of it. Because of that, we also got massive DPS buffs that didn't really do anything. So when we finally had role queue going back to the DPS characters, they all turned out to be really, really powerful. You know, so it is a little bit all over the place. Regardless, though, I think the final nail in the coffin was the Jotes comp. So if you didn't know, the Goats play style basically came back in Overwatch 2. You might be saying, Abby, how is that even possible? There's only one tank and two supports, and I agree with you, but unfortunately, Junker Queen's commanding shout ability to kind of turn everybody into a mini tank did encourage for such a play style where everybody was just playing to bait out cooldowns before even bothering to make a play, which made well, there were some good games, but most of the games were very boring to watch. I say this as somebody who's an avid fan of the Overwatch League. I'm a huge fan of Dallas Fuel. Fortunately, they were very good at this comp and it was fun to watch, but watching other teams was dreadful at times because it just felt like it just felt very boring. I think if there's a meta where Genji, Sojourn, Ashe look very boring to play, then you're doing something wrong. So that's my little take on it. But yeah, the rest of the article just basically talks about the fact that Jeff Goodman has worked on Overwatch since Titan, when Overwatch wasn't Overwatch yet, and it was called Project Titan, and he also worked around Warcraft and Heroes of the Storm. So the stuff I talked about that probably has some merit, like the stuff that they talked about on Reddit, and it just goes into the details that Overwatch 2 is going to be free to play in October. Now, I kind of want to come back and talk to you guys, my audience, my little community of this little almost 500 subscriber channel. I want to ask you guys, do you guys think Jeff Goodman genuinely stepped down, or do you guys think Jeff Goodman was fired? I think it's a cover up article. I think they're going around it. They want to soften the blow. They know their company has too much blood in their hands, and they probably just got him to kind of move on from Overwatch, and like he left his mark and everything, and they just kind of like had him move on. But they are softening the blow by saying that, yeah, well, it was his decision, and I'm sure he made that decision because maybe there was some peer pressure involved or anything like that, and maybe I'm just overthinking, and maybe it wasn't as bad as I'm making it out to be, and he just generally decided that, hey, it's time to move on, maybe Overwatch isn't for me. But from what I've heard from a lot of other content creators and people that are within the Overwatch team that are talking about it, like here and there, I won't mention specific sources for their privacy. uh it apparently seems that Jeff Goodman was very, very passionate about Overwatch. He loved it, he breathed it. So it feels weird. I want to hear your take on this scenario. Let me know what you think about Jeff Goodman leaving the Overwatch team. Do you think it's a good thing for the game? Personally, I think it's one of the greatest things that could happen. This could lead into a big breath of fresh air, and we're gonna talk about that in the next video that you should probably see up on this channel shortly after this one. We're gonna talk about the insane DPS role passive buff that has come through. With that being said, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.